So in this session, we're going to learn about cut extrude. Now we're starting with our extruded feature that's 3 inches by 4 inches by 1 inch big that we did in the extrude video. And we're going to start going up here to the feature command manager, and there we're going to find our extruded cut. This is going to allow us to do things like pockets and recessed areas or remove sections of parts that we want to remove from our original extrusion. So I'm going to go ahead and click on extruded cut, and it's going to come up asking for us to either pick a face or a plane in which to create a sketch on. So if I come in here and if I hover over the top of my part, I can see the lines are going to go red around there representing them on that face. I could have picked this one, but I'm going to pick this top plane right here. Now when I do that, it's going to put me in sketch mode and I'm ready to draw. If I actually was to come in here and start drawing, you'll notice I'm drawing on that sketch. Now I'm going to hit escape. I'm still in the sketch mode, but what I like to do at this time is go ahead and hit the space bar and pick which viewport I want to have. Now here's the glass box. I could pick from here, and that's going to put me normal to the drawing of that surface, or I could actually just go over here and pick normal to, and that's going to allow me to draw normal to that surface, or I can come over here and pick whichever viewport I would want, which would be this viewport. For me, I just usually hit normal to, and it automatically brings the part to this viewport where I'm looking normal to the surface and I'm going to see everything true size. Now what I want to do is I'm going to leverage all my planes in the extrude example and this plane. I'm leveraging these planes. There's my front plane, there's my top plane, and there's a right plane. They all intersect off this origin. And I'm going to keep this kind of concept because a lot of times when we model, if we can leverage planes and things like that and make things symmetrical, this is going to make stuff really, really nice. So if I was to come in here and do a cut extrude, I'm going to draw a rectangle. And now I have a rectangle that's going to need dimensions on there. So I'm going to come in here and put some dimensions on this. And I'm just going to make this 1.5 long. And I'm going to come over here and make this 1.5 long as well. Now I could put dimensions on there that they're going to be equal to each other. Or if I wanted to, I could put a sketch relationship on there. Now how would that work? Let's delete this dimension here. Whoops, sorry, I hit the wrong portion on that. I'm going to delete this. If I wanted to, and again, I've accidentally moved my mouse. You can always go back to normal too. There is a feature called sketch relations when I'm in the sketches here. And I can add a relationship. And so entities that I want to do, I'm going to say this one and this one. And I can come down here and pick if they're horizontal, vertical, collinear, perpendicular, or equal. So I'm going to make those equal. You notice it puts a relationship here and here that these are equal. So in looking at this whole cut that I'm going to do on the part, I even have that the center is about the origin where those three planes are intersecting. So that's going to be neat on there. So I can always add relationships on there. If I want to delete them, I just click on it and delete it. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a dimension back on here. And I now have my dimension on there. What I'd like to do next is come in and put some smart dimensions to locate this feature from here, for example. Maybe when we want that, oh, hey, what's going on here? Let's read this. This is a great time to talk about when dimensions become driven or driving. Now, the fact that I've drawn this rectangle using from center out, and I taught it to go off the origin where those three planes intersect, and it put those relationships, and all I needed to find was the length on there. But if I'm going to bring these dimensions, like we talked in the sketch, over to a detailed drawing later on, I probably want to have a dimension here, but I'm going to leave it as a driven dimension. So when I click on that, I'm also going to change this to 2 decimal places. Maybe that's my design intent. And when I click off here, you notice it's kind of gray versus a black look. And that means that's a driven dimension. I can't click on that and type a number. Okay, if I come down here, for example, and type on this, I can now change this to 1 inch if I wanted to. Okay, and it also changed that driven dimension. So I'm going to change that back to 1.5. And I now have that dimension, and we've seen that drive on there. So again, if I was going to bring this into a detailed drawing, I know I'm going to need to locate, oh, sorry about that. I'm going to locate off of the edge to here, and I would want to have an actual dimension that would show up, and it's going to be driven as well. And I'm going to change that to 2 decimal places as well, just so that I can show that I captured that intent. Maybe I want to hold the size of the actual feature itself pretty critical, but the location relative to this corner is not as important. So now we have that sketch on there and we've dimensioned that. I'm going to go ahead and close my sketch. And at this time, it's showing, and I'm going to kind of move my sketch around, that it's cutting to the inside. If I switch this, it will flip it to the outside. Okay, so I'm cutting inward. I can do a blind. I can still do through all, or through all would cut it always through the part, so that if I ever change the thickness, it always updates with that. If I do blind, it's going to have a number, and if I type in 0.5, and again, I could actually grab the little arrow here and change it, or I can put 0.5 on there. I can also change the flip outside that I wanted. How do I want it to cut? And so I can cut inside or outside of this object. I can add draft on this or not. I can draft outward, inward, change the angles. I can add directions just like we did before, or I can even change it to thin feature. We've talked about some of that in the past. I'm going to take the draft off here and I'm going to say accept. Now you noticed it took all the material on the outside of that. I wanted it to do a pocket, so I can go back and re-edit that. And again, that was because we left that flipped outside. And you notice there was a little arrow up here that flipped one way or another. Now I'm cutting a pocket into this. So this is going to be a nice feature on here. Another nice thing for a cut extrude is, let's say that I want to cut a notch out right here out of this part. So I'm going to go back to cut extrude and hit spacebar normal 2 here. And we're going to cut a piece of this out right here. So a great way of doing that might be to come in here and just grab, and you notice I've touched the line so it has a constraint there, and I'm going to come down here and put this little feature on here. We're going to put some dimensions on this so that we have dimensions on this. Maybe I want this to go 1/2 inch deep, and I wanted it to be, we've already done 1/2 inch. Let's go from here to here, give it a dimension at 1 inch. And let's say that this thing is going to be 1 inch long. And so now we have a location for this line. We know how long this line is going to be at 1 inch. We know that it's constrained to here and it's 1/2 inch deep. And this is going to be a good sketch on here. Again, I can change the decimal places if I needed to. So that would be fully defined. I'm going to hit accept. And so what I'm going to do is come in here and say through all. Through all is going to go all the way through that. I'm going to finish that. And now we can see that we have a notch in there. So at this point, we've learned how to create a internal pocket and how we can even remove the material outside if we wanted to using that flip command. And we learned how to do a notch into a part using through all. So that concludes this session on Cut Extrude.